This is, yeah, no, the first thing I do after every show is this, just so people out there understand how this works. We have a 3-hour meeting in the morning to set together the topics of the podcast. We go back and forth on several things. There's a whole crew. We have outside reporters, interns pitching us stories the whole time. We're going back, and I say, no, we got to have this. We really need to talk about food for 35 minutes. And we go through this whole thing. We go through the entire thing. And then, of course, we do a practice show. We run the entire thing with just stand-ins, like not us, but just guys who look like us, who stand in, just to make sure the lighting is right. And then we do the podcast, of course. And after the podcast, there's an extensive 2-hour grilling of all the things that went wrong.
And an editing process.
Right, yeah. At which time money is taken away from people who do poorly, added to those who do well. Yeah, so this is just so people know that this is not just that we don't just show up at 5 to 10 minutes late and do this show every day.
As I was texting Mike while I was in traffic 10 minutes ago, I'm going to be about 2 minutes late.
Yeah, and so you know that. I mean, Dan knows that this means he's going to have to.
Well, Dan, see, that's an amateur move. That's such an amateur move because today and tonight are known as amateur day and amateur night for all those who for a veteran like myself, I know that everybody who's over 21 is going to be out tonight on the day before Thanksgiving out in bars and restaurants. Yeah. So I'm going to go to the gym, get myself dinner, come home and watch 13 NHL games instead of being out there trying to fight through traffic to go someplace.
This is the weekend, though, that you will meet your future wife. I mean, I met my wife on the Friday after Thanksgiving at our 10th year high school reunion. I mean, we started dating. I'd known her since we were in the same first grade class. But I actually, this is the weekend where everybody returns home. This is the hookup weekend, Mike. This is when you can get it done. So.
Well, okay.
Just real quick, by the way, the pre-show meeting should never be longer than the actual show. That's a television rule.
Yeah, I know. We try, as you know, but so many stories.
Mike won't stop talking.
Mike won't stop talking. We've got beautiful interns who are pitching us great stories.
I guess I'm not meeting my future wife then.
No, and many of the interns, Mike, are all over you though. You need to start talking to them more.
There's too many jokes there. We should probably start the show.
I'm playing it cool.
Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, November 25th, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Dan Petru.
I'm Kevin Allen, and on behalf of the whole staff here, happy Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes, that's right. And I am Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes Monday through Friday, this week Monday through Wednesday because of the holidays, to bring you the latest comings and goings and news. And like last night and tonight, tons of games to talk about. We've got interesting rumors to discuss. We're going to talk about whether or not the Blackhawks are going to be in the playoffs come American Thanksgiving or not, which was my bold prediction that they wouldn't be in the playoffs come American Thanksgiving, and they're only 1 point in the playoffs right now. Last I checked, they're 2 points. And I'm sorry if they're cutting the grass below me here, and so if you hear that sound, that's what's going on. But let's start with we pushed the show back a little bit today because we wanted to have Kevin on to talk about John Collins, the NHL COO, who is leaving the NHL for other business opportunities, which we can only assume he's going to start his own version of Twitter or something. But yeah, he's we don't know what he's doing. But John Collins, a major player, I think, in the NHL. Kev?
Superstar. That's what I would say. And I think this is a significant loss. And I think although it sort of surprises all of us, because I don't think there was any immediate rumbling that he was about to leave. I don't think overall, I doubt that it was surprising to Gary Bettman. I'll bet Gary Bettman knew for a long time that he was at some point going to leave. And the reason he's going to leave is because he's so very good. And he's very creative, and he is capable of running whatever he chooses to run. And I think he was sort of blocked here at the NHL. Gary Bettman, as commissioner, is not going anywhere for a very long time, and when he does go somewhere, Bill Daley is right there in front of him. And the reason I believe it's a significant loss is the NHL, in terms of its being a good business. Gary Bettman and Bill Daley have all the legal background. They have the experience. This league has grown exponentially under Bettman's stewardship. and Bill Daly has been a part of that for many, many years. They've got it all buttoned up and handled. But what they really, I don't know if lacking is the right word, because I don't think they thought in this direction because they don't have enough time. They needed someone to color outside the lines. And John Collins came in, and he colors outside the lines. And he is a very creative thinker. He adds color to the game. And you look at all the stuff that he's done. He looked at the outdoor concept and said, we are not getting close to doing enough with this. And he's expanded it to now it's become part of the NHL culture. It's a huge part of its ability to create more revenue. He changed the way we looked at the television and the digital platform that the NHL now has. He just recently changed the All-Star concept. He's talked about future having a Ryder Cup concept as well. So he's really sort of expanded the traditional NHL thinking to make it more marketing savvy. And he's not the only guy who can do that, but he was a very, as I mentioned, creative, almost ingenious in his presentation of the game. So in that regard, I think they're going to lose him, are going to miss him, and I think there'll be a long line of people who will want to have this job now because he has set it up, and this is actually a pretty reasonable time for him to leave because the World Cup now is set up. We know what that's going to be about. They've changed the All-Star format. The Winter Classic concept and the Outdoor Classic is now mature. It's self-sustaining. So if there was ever a good time for Collins to leave, it's probably now.
Yeah, it didn't sound like there were many more mountains to climb, Kevin. And the funny thing is, not that this was any kind of signal, but maybe it could have been interpreted as one. When Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment was looking for a new CEO to replace Tim Lewicki, the name of John Collins popped up over the summer. It didn't come to fruition, but it was out there, which had to signal maybe that he was looking for a new challenge. And like I said, it didn't end up happening, but it was out there as one name of a list of names. So I'm sure wherever he's going to go, he's a very capable guy, and as you listed, everything from the Winter Classic to 24/7, which I think was innovative for the NHL. Whoever comes and replaces him is going to probably have a challenge to be as innovative as him, but wherever he goes, he's going to bring that a pretty nice resume.
I feel like what was most important about John was, the All-Star game is I guess, kind of interesting. It's a great thing to go out on. It's such an interesting concept. The fact, it's just brilliant in my mind. It's going to be fascinating to see how it works. And we haven't even gotten a chance to talk to Kevin since that. I haven't gotten a chance to talk to Kevin since the All-Star thing went down. But what really I think was important with him is before him in the NHL. And I wasn't around the NHL as much as you were before him, Kevin, but the brief period I was around before him, there was a sense of a lot of really smart business people who didn't want to rock the boat too much, were afraid of the hockey purists to a degree, but were willing to, but knew they had to because the NHL didn't have a television contract, and a big one at that time. They had to push forward, and there was this. And I think he's the one who came up with a way to balance all of that. Came up with a way to balance the pushing forward along with keeping the hockey purists okay, and somehow it worked, and it was one of those things I don't think anyone else had the guts to do, to be honest. And it's pretty. But they had the guts to let him do it, which is still something. That really was impressive in my life. Yeah,
I agree. He just sort of, the NHL was a good business, but it just wasn't spectacular, and he added flash and pizzazz to the business model. And I think you're right on when you said that he wasn't afraid. What gets in the way of most creative thinking is fear.
Yeah.
How will it be perceived?
Right.
How will it look? The tradition in the NHL is so important, and he wasn't afraid, and he took it in a direction. I remember just prior to the Winter Classic, on New Year's Day, everybody said, "Oh, this could be a disaster." That's football day.
Oh, you remember that? That
Yeah.
was
Right.
yes.
And now it's like the minute it snowed in Buffalo, and we had the snow globe effect, and then suddenly the New Year's Day belonged at least partially, to the NHL. So I think we're going to see John Collins go somewhere big. Like, it was interesting when I said this at the time, like the Toronto Maple Leafs, when I saw that report, because I remember that as well, I thought that's not big enough for John Collins. If I'm not mistaken, I think he was had that role with the Cleveland Browns at some point. He certainly worked in the NFL too, in the league office. So like he doesn't have to go to sports. He may end up there, but he could be the CEO of a major corporation. Like he is that level of a businessman.
I agree. I could actually see him in sports reality TV in a weird way. Like I think that would be a good place for him, because there's a whole new group of reality television shows that are not necessarily reality television shows. Maybe that's the wrong way of putting it, but shows that are television shows that are around sports. Like we used to have the Battle of the Network Stars we grew up with as kids.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great place for him to go. Shows like that, because that's where his kind of creativity would come into play the most, and he could actually have the most impact. He did so much for the league and really helped blend the two sides, and did it without being afraid of the certain teams that everybody else is afraid of. Like I feel like the NHL has a certain amount of power, and then there's a couple teams the NHL is afraid of, like the Rangers, the Canadians, the Maple Leafs. Mainly those three teams. A little bit of the Hawks nowadays. It's just like there's this fear that these teams are bigger than the league, and those teams would always be the ones in the past that would shoot things down, make creative, innovative things, and they would say no, and then they'd say, well, if the Canadians won't do it, we're not. We just can't do it.
Yeah. Well, his charm also helped him. Like he had the ability, he can charm his way out of tight spots. And I think that really helped him as well. One of the reasons why people are fearful is they're afraid they'll be criticized. But he had that ability to kind of soften everybody up before he did anything, just because he was an engaging person. You get in a room with John Collins, you could tell that he was the most important man in the room.
Oh yeah.
He had a charisma and aura about him.
He would be a good politician. He definitely had that feeling of like.
And to be like, this guy. Like if I heard he suddenly became the head of NBC, I wouldn't be shocked. Like this is, that's the type of.
Interesting you say that, because that is the rumor that I heard. NBC Sports, which has a guy, Littman, I think his name is. John Littman, is it? Something like that.
So, yeah.
Right?
Right, I think so. I think that's right.
Who's been with NBC Sports for a long time, who I just heard on Thursday night, or when I was at the Flyers game last, which was against the Sharks, and that dazzling performance of the 1-0 game that was just thrilling at every second. That was the night I heard about the fact that the NBC Sports head was leaving, and to me that makes perfect sense. That's where he should go, and maybe that's where he will go. But yeah, I don't know if you'd heard anything, Kevin, but I had heard that he was leaving, and the first thing I heard with Collins is I heard that this made sense.
NBC Sports could definitely use someone with the forward thinking that Collins has.
Yeah, I totally agree. The NBC Sports has been also it's in a way in a similar place the NHL was when
Absolutely.
Because there's an old school NBC Sports that still exists. The Bob Costas NBC Sports that has been going on for years and years and years. And they've been pushed to be more innovative because of the internet, because of various reasons. But then they do some backwards things too, like they tell reporters that they can't have their iPhones in the locker room. There's certain things they end up doing that take them reversed, and they think they're trying to do one thing, they're actually doing another. Collins had a really good perspective on this.
I feel like the NFL, the college sports, that's old school NBC. The new school NBC is their hockey coverage, and by far their Premier League soccer coverage. Like they take chances with that. They really, they don't. There's no censorship there. The Men in Blazer show is not a show that would be on most networks. They let them say whatever the hell they want in it. It's just two guys in a room with one camera, and it works. And so they definitely take chances, and I think that's the new side of NBC that you're seeing right there, and it's definitely something that's working.
Yeah, I really agree. I could see that completely being. I could see that being a perfect fit for him. and and a natural fit for him because it's still he would still be working with hockey to a degree as well. So you about that. Do we worry about the NHL at all with him leaving? Kevin, do we worry about it? I mean,
no, I don't, because he has set so many things in place that is ready to go, and even the Ryder Cup concept. And there's one great frontier left, which is Europe.
Yeah.
And I'm sure anybody who comes in and takes that job is going to walk in and have some sort of plan for what to do with hockey outside, North America, because I think that's where there's still a lot of growth room to monetize what's going on over there. So. That's where I think the next area is. But he's set this up pretty well. The World Cup, we're assuming now this will be a regular event. There's too much money not for them to do it continuously. And the All-Star format, the 3-on-3 is intriguing enough. The novelty will wear off at some point, and they'll have to do something else.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I mean, the draft was fun for 2 or 3 years, and then that fell off. I mean, my answer to that, and I said it, I think, on the last time I appeared, is I would love for them to see. Now, this is not going to happen because we're so afraid of somebody getting hurt. But if you really want to bring back the competitiveness of the game, then let's make it the NHL versus the KHL. Invite the KHL All-Stars over, or the Finnish All-Stars, or the Swedish All-Stars, or rotate them, or make a Team Europe.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, the best of the other pro leagues.
Yeah, because guess what? That would be a great game.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guarantee you that when NHL players line up and look across and see a foreign player there, they want to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just human nature. So the problem is, everybody would be worried about losing top players to injuries in a competitive game. So I don't see that we're going to see that. And Did I like this 3-on-3 concept? Sure, I did. It'll be interesting, but I think like anything else, just because the players are going to be worried about getting hurt, we're just still not going to see pure competition, at least not as we enjoy it.
Yeah, and I actually worry about the fact that, my biggest issue is I think they shouldn't be doing 20 minutes at a time. I think they should they're doing 10 and 10, but I honestly don't see any reason why we're not doing the Western game for 10 minutes, the Eastern game for 10 minutes, then back to the Western, then back to the Eastern.
Because they want to give some meaning to the skills competition, so that the team that wins gets the advantage of playing the.
That's really silly. Give the skills competition, give the home ice advantage or whatever to the. To me, that's where I think this is going to get really tricky, because that team that plays the second half, the second and third periods, essentially 3-on-3, is going to be shot. That's going to be a really hard thing for anyone to do. I think just after a 5-minute overtime. I've been in locker rooms, Kevin, where the players are really tired, and 3-on-3 is exhausting.
Shouldn't they expand
that? But they won't be. I guarantee you, they will not be going like they do in the NHL overtimes. It'll be a different deal. I felt like all along the NHL should have just accepted that the NHL All-Star Weekend is what it is. It's the annual NHL convention. We all get together. Yeah. The players talk about the state of the game. A lot of people who are not diehard fans show up, corporate sponsors, young kids.
Yeah.
They come in, they get up close and personal and see a exhibition of sport and just let it go. I just think it's hard to bring back the competitiveness because the world has changed. We in the 1980s, we didn't worry about losing a player, a top player to injury. I was in St. Louis when Mario Lemieux put on a show at an All-Star game, and I believe the score was 6-4 or 5-4 or whatever, and it was a great game. But we're not going to see that anymore because the world has changed. We worry too much about the contracts and how much they're getting paid and the loss of the team and so forth. There's too much at stake.
I think too is back then, the mid '80s, early '80s, you couldn't watch every game every night. And you didn't see these players that often. So you'd have an opportunity at the All-Star game to maybe see a Wayne Gretzky. If you're on the East Coast, you don't see them that much. Or a player out. I remember even in the early 90s, like when Teemu Selanne busted on the scene, you couldn't watch him every night unless you saw the highlights on TV. The games weren't readily available. So I remember when he came into Hartford, I said to my dad, I have to go to this game. We have to go to this game.
Yeah.
So now we're in a day and age where we watch every play and we can watch every shot on goal right from our phone. So I think that has changed a lot too.
Yeah, let me add to that. I don't know if anybody saw my story that I did on Phil Housley, but in that story, Jim Johansson, who is the guru of, he's usually the general manager of all the U.S. national teams, and he's with USA Hockey. He grew up playing against Phil Housley in Minnesota. And when Phil Housley got in the Hall of Fame, I asked him about him, and he said what was interesting is once he turned pro, he said he didn't see him in a game for years because he went to Buffalo.
Right.
Yeah.
And Buffalo was never on television.
Right.
So he said, it was probably the third or fourth year before he saw, and he was playing pro hockey at the time. Year 3 or 4 when he actually saw Buffalo on a televised game. It was the first time he had ever seen Housley play in the NHL. And we've forgotten that now, like how difficult it was.
Right.
To see the NHL even in the 1980s. So I think your point, Dan, is a good one. That back then there was a fascination with seeing players that you didn't see on a regular basis.
I mean, shoot, I saw Eichel play like 20 times last year. I already knew what to expect when he busted into the league. You can see the juniors and college. You can see these guys from a very very early age now.
Well, yeah, I mean, when it came to the draft and prospects, the only source of information wasn't seeing them play junior. I mean, there are services out there that you can subscribe to. You can see the video of WHL and QMJHL games and things of that nature. It was reading the hockey news and seeing the rankings.
Right.
Seeing like a weekly tabulation of what was going on in each league and the scoring totals every month from each junior league. There was no seeing Mario Lemieux or seeing Doug Wickenheiser or whoever the top player in a particular draft was. It was basically word of mouth until the draft, which was then mostly in Montreal, I believe. Yeah, that's how you would, now there's so much more information and technology has been able to provide you to be able to see these players even if you're not there.
Mike, I did a fantasy league with my parents. Me, my mom, and my dad each had a team, and I tracked it and I updated it each week by hand from the hockey news. That's how we had to do it back then. And that was in the late 80s. And for the record, my mom would kick our butts almost every year.
Well, even in the late 70s, when I was working at a paper in Arizona, coincidentally, I was just down in Arizona. I actually drove down to, Casa Grande, where I had a job after college, and I had access to the wire, and I could not even follow the NHL, even though I had the wire. Just in United States, you just did not get more than box scores and like 3 sentences on each game. So that was 35 years ago, but in the growth of the league and the game, that's not that long ago.
If I missed the final season edition of the Hockey News and didn't get the final stats, the only way I was able to get the final stats was to send a letter to the NHL offices in New York and ask for their final stats.
Wow! I can see, Mike. I can see you being the guy also sending another letter trying to correct some of those stats.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. They must have loved it. Oh man, here's Mike.
Lou Francis Getty's plus minus is off.
Mike sent his letter in. That's awesome, though. I didn't know you could even do that.
That's awesome. Can you still do that? I feel like you should just do that.
Well, you don't have to. The NHL website has it, but I mean, back then when I'm 12 years old or 13 years old playing Stratomatic hockey, and I need the stats to be able to know what players to draft. That was the only way. If I missed that final edition of the Hockey News, where the hell were you going to get the stats?
I love it.
Real quick, this is how pathetic I was as a child. I remember playing NHL 94 and actually having a binder. I had a book, and I would actually track all the players' stats on my team through the course of the season. And after each goal, I would stop and I would watch the replay so I could correctly get plus, minus, and assists and all that crap. Yeah.
Dan,
that's why we're doing this show right now. I mean, that's
right.
We've
come a long way, baby.
In a contest of nerdiness, I win. I'm sorry, but I'll tolerate.
Oh, absolutely, hands down.
That's awesome. All right. In other news, Mark Bergevin has been extended until 2021-22, which feels like a long time from now. But it is
next week.
In
terms, so
7 years. But Mark Bergevin. I mean, obviously the Canadians are doing well right now. The Canadians like him. I like him. I think he's a great GM. I'm really, as a Canadians, everybody knows my one beef with him, but I think I like him as a general manager. I think he's made great trades. He's a very aggressive trader, which I think is important for a team like Montreal to have a guy who's going to be aggressive and not just sit back. I'm hearing the Canadiens mentioned a lot in rumors right now, and that they're going to try to do something else in the near future too. So, thoughts, Kevin, on Marc Bergevin?
Well, he's been terrific. He stepped right in, hit the ground running. It was like he was an experienced general manager, and he's done a good job of reacting. And I love his honesty, to be truthful. Last summer, when people talked about how they needed a big center, he basically threw it back at the naivete of the media by saying, "Okay, name me all the big centers that are available." I mean, there are just none available. It's nice of you to point out that we need a big center, but where does reality, fit into needs and wants and desires? It's not that simple. And I appreciate guys who try to point out the realities of some of the situations. So and he's been creative in how he's dealt with that instead of getting a guy who doesn't really qualify to fill that hole. He just sort of changed his team and took advantage of the development of some of his players and took a chance on Semin. It didn't work out, or at least it hasn't yet. But I loved the gamble. I thought it was a good roll of the dice. There are good gambles and bad gambles. As gambles go, that was a good one. Has been patient when he needed to be patient. Has been aggressive when he needed to be aggressive. So I think this is a good signing, and is it a reaction a little bit to the idea that the Red Wings is the first team to sort of lose a coach to free agency? So Montreal said we want to keep our guy, tied up long term. I don't know the answer to that, but certainly I think the Canadiens just wanted to reward him for the fact that everybody's pleased with the job he's done.
Well, I mean, he has to be given a lot of credit for a lot of the little moves that he's made. I mean, I'm not as big a Devontae Smith-Pelly fan as Zach is, but I mean, getting guys like Flynn, getting guys like Dale Weiss for a very low price, developing the organization, bringing up younger players. I think they have a good young prospect in De La Rose down in the AHL. They brought up Condon as a goaltender, as a backup. So they've been able to bring up players within their organization and make moves. That Torrey Mitchell was another move at the deadline that was excellent. But the thing is, I think Bergevin, as a first-time general manager, was very smart to surround himself with experience. I know he kept Rick Dudley around. Rick Dudley, I think, is qualified to be a general manager for most teams. He's a really good, sharp hockey guy, and he's the AGM there. And he kept him on and brought him in. And some general managers have to know that they don't know everything, and it's good to surround themselves with good people. So I think that was a smart move on his part.
I agree, and Dudley is definitely has been a general manager before. Could have been a general manager by now if he wanted to take certain jobs. I believe he's turned down positions. But yeah, and there's been a lot of good. Gerard Gallant goes through there. He plays there, and he coaches there as assistant coach, and now goes on and does a fine job in Florida. So yeah, it's interesting. You have to wonder whenever you see something like this. 7 years in Montreal seems like an eternity. As much as they love him now, as much as we're all sitting there saying what a great job he's done now, man, if you can make it 7 years in Montreal, that is by far the most impressive thing you could possibly do. I mean, just because there's no question that this is not a town that it's hard to keep a team up for 7 years.
Everybody is day to day in Montreal.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, there's no question. So of all the teams, this is the one that I really, if he makes it the length of that contract, that he should be in the Hall of Fame for that alone. That's really. Well,
Scotty Bowman only lasted in Montreal, I believe, 8 years, and I think he won 5 Stanley Cups in that time. So if he lasts to the end of that contract, he's got one up on Scotty Bowman. But I wanted to ask something to everybody. I know that there's been talk at either the next Board of Governors meeting or the next GM's meeting regarding this compensation situation for coaches and general managers. and there's talk about them doing away with it, even possibly in season by January 1st, to allow coaches, say like Randy Carlisle or others who are under contract with the organizations that fired them. So if they wanted to go someplace, or if they were hired by somebody, there wouldn't be the compensation that Columbus had to pay to Vancouver for Tortorella. Kevin, don't you think that if they do that, that the teams that had to provide compensation, like the Leafs for Babcock and Lamoriello, that they should get those picks back if they're going to reverse the rule after a year?
Well, I mean, there's some logic to that. Nobody likes that rule. The teams that I think even the teams that got compensation, think it's not a good rule, just because it's prohibitive from getting from coaches moving who lose their jobs. It's and Bettman never liked it right from the beginning, and I think the GMs will vote against it. But I think your point's a good one. So it'll be interesting to see how people react to that, whether they would be grandfathered in. But boy, if you already have those picks,
right?
That'll be hard for them to go through. So
I'd be able to take them away. They are. I mean, they won't, because because you could have, if you have those picks. I don't know if those picks are tradable though. Are they tradable?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Well, no. The compensation for Babcock and Lamoriello is a third-round pick within 3 years. So 2016, 17, or 18, the Leafs will have to surrender a third-round pick to New Jersey and a third-round pick to Detroit. It's up to them to decide when. But yeah, so it's sort of
now and say, oh, we've traded that third-round pick. We won it this year. We're going to trade it to so and so.
Well, no, that they have to have that third-round pick. Right. To give to those teams. I mean,
no, but I mean, when the teams that take it, can't the teams take it? Could they then trade it?
Sure, why not? It's their. The Leafs would have to.
It's one of those strange. I don't know. Maybe yeah. I guess they can, but it feels like I don't know.
Yeah, the Leafs would have to reward them the pick and say, yes, we're surrendering to you, and then once they do that, it's their pick.
Yeah. It's not one of those like end of the round picks like the Koval pick.
No, it's not a compensatory pick. It's Toronto's number 3.
Right. All right. Well, yeah. Another news. This I really like, guys. This is coming back on Friday night, and this is one of my favorite jerseys of all time. Just want to throw it out there.
Oh.
Against the Arizona Coyotes. Are wearing the old Phoenix Coyotes jerseys against the Calgary Flames.
10 shaves, then a disposable on its first.
What's the audio there, Heck?
Not mine.
Okay. I like that jersey. It's not the most pleasing to the eye, but it's better than the fisherman's friend from the Islanders.
Oh, come on.
Kevin, you were just in Arizona, so this is what everything looks like in Arizona.
Yeah. No, it
doesn't mean you should make a jersey of it.
I like that jersey, quite a lot. So it's funny, when I was in Arizona, I was there for a wedding. A cousin got married, and I took my wife down to where I had lived, almost 40 years ago, and I talked about all the wildlife that you see. I went to Picacho Peak, which was a peak that I had climbed when I was in my 20s. It's at the end you use guide wires and you're on your hands and knees, and if you look down, it's a 1,000-foot drop. It's a bit scary. Anyway, but I just talked about the wildlife, and we didn't climb the peak again, but we walked a mile into the desert and walked around, and we did not see a single lizard, or a Gila monster, or a roadrunner. They all went into hiding. And I went to the ranger and I said, last time I was here there were like wild burros. And she goes, well, when's the last time you were here? I've been here like almost 20 years, and there haven't been any wild burros in. I said, well, it's like 40 years ago. And and she said the roadrunners are not plentiful anymore. You don't see them. She's only seen 4 Gila monsters in her time there, and lizards, you couldn't walk 3 steps and not, come across.
There might be a lizard on X deck right there right now.
Yeah, so.
There's everywhere right here in Florida.
Maybe they've all gone to Florida,
Maybe that's it. Maybe they moved here.
All the baseball teams went to Arizona. All the lizards went to Florida.
Yeah, they're everywhere here. I mean, you can't go 5 feet without stepping on a salamander.
So.
Not that you should. But Kevin, so I wanted to get your Indiana's opinion before we leave today. Yesterday, Mike, Russ, and I did something kind of fun because this big Thanksgiving thing is coming on, and the American Thanksgiving is the doomsday for all the teams who aren't in the playoffs. We wanted to know what teams that are in the playoffs now do you think that you and Dan think are not going to be in the playoffs at the end of the year, and what teams that aren't in the playoffs will be?
I can tell you that I think it's the Boston Bruins, because sooner or later, even though I just put on another podcast, I just put the entire Tampa Bay Lightning team in the penalty box for their performance thus far. They're a hangover team, and they should you don't have a hangover if you win. And they should be hungry. They should be hungry. They should not be hungover. They should be hungry. They're playing like they have a hangover. I mean, 21st in the league in offense for a team that was first last season. Tyler Johnson is not playing like the same Tyler Johnson that we witnessed in the postseason. Filppula is not at that level.
Yeah.
Warren is not at that level either. But ultimately, I believe they will be at that level, and I think they'll replace Boston. I think it'll be a 4-4 split in the Metropolitan and the Atlantic, and I just can't. I admire what the Devils have done, and people still want to say that they've been dull, but they actually have scored more goals than the Red Wings. They've scored more goals than the Pittsburgh Penguins. And Camilleri's playing at a high level, but I just can't believe in them. I ultimately think the Islanders. They've been on this path longer. They have more parts. I think ultimately they're going to have to decide that Hamonic is better served, at least the trading of him after the season. So I think the Islanders and the Lightning will squeeze in, and it'll be a 4-4, and the Bruins and the Devils will fall out.
Well, Kevin, I was of that opinion with the Devils, unless Ray Shero goes out before the deadline. They're one of the few teams. Now, I know budgetarily they don't probably have a ton of room, but they have a lot of cap room. And if they were close when the deadline comes around, or even before then, I think their area of need right now is not scoring. It's probably on the blue line. They have a lot of young blue liners, but if they could get themselves a defenseman to play in their top four, I think that would help increase their possibility of making the playoffs. I think they've surprised me. I mean, we were picking them in the bottom four of the league.
Yeah.
And now we knew Corey Schneider would prevent them from probably being down there, but if they continue to get scoring out of Henrique, out of Zajac, and out of Camilleri.
How about Kyle Palmieri too? Palmieri's been really good.
Yeah, yes, but Mike, do you really like him more than the Islanders?
No, I don't. But I have a few.
I don't like it. Well, we can get to me in a minute about the Islanders, but go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead, Dan, because I
agree with Kevin. I think Boston and New Jersey are the two teams I'd be surprised if they made the playoffs. But I do disagree with Kevin. Is I think they need to end this Hamonic ordeal now. They need to make this trade, because there's problems with this team. The play in the neutral zone is disgusting. That's the best way I can describe it. It's fixable. They're getting good goaltending. Their defense, for the most part, has been okay. But the play in the neutral zone has just been so sloppy and so careless, and it's the same players every night. And they need to use the opportunity of getting some good assets back for Hamonic and fixing the problems with this team. They never have the puck. They're always chasing it, and it's part of their play in the neutral zone. There's been many reports locally that Capuano may have lost his locker room, and they definitely need to, because Garth Snow's on notice too. If this team misses the playoffs, nobody is safe. There's new owners coming in next year, and as good of a job as Snow has done rebuilding this, I don't think anybody's job is safe, and they shouldn't be acting like they are. So I think the Hamonic thing, if it lingers on too much, it's just going to get worse, and they have a chance to fix what's wrong with their team right now. They should go out and do it.
Well, where do you see them doing that?
I don't know. I don't.
The fit is not good. That's the problem.
I know.
And if we were if you're in the off season, you make this trade easily.
Here's the thing too: is I think you might be able to get a better return if you include Oposo in the deal. They're not going to re-sign him.
There's two ways going. I mean, three-way deals are very difficult to make, but this is a time when it's almost imperative that they do that, because there's no help that you can get from the four teams that he wants to go, but you could get players back that you could trade elsewhere.
Right.
And if you can figure out a second part to the deal, you might be able to work it out. But I think this could really hurt the franchise if they just make a deal to make a deal and don't hurt themselves. And most of the GMs I've talked to said there's not a good fit that anybody sees with Winnipeg, Calgary, or Edmonton or Vancouver.
It's puzzling, though, the fact that this really would solve a need for the Oilers. They really need a top 4 defensive defenseman, and it's just puzzling that they won't.
The Oilers are they're very wimpy when it comes to trades. The only way.
Yeah, you're right. Step up. You have 4 or 5 a very similar player in your organization. The Oilers have the pieces to make that trade.
Yeah, but they're like I said, they're
afraid to.
Who do you think that the Islanders would take?
Eberle.
Yeah.
So
I don't think they want a part of Yakupov, because look at Yakupov's production. As soon as McDavid got hurt, his production, he became Yakupov.
I mean, you got to give up a lot more than Hamonic. I mean, Hamonic's being overvalued for Eberle. That's not. You can't do that.
You have to think too. You are also giving the Oilers some major cap relief in that deal too.
I mean, Poso and Eberle, Poso and Hamonic is interesting, but
I was told that the Oilers turned down a Eberle and a defensive prospect for Hamonic and a Poso. The Oilers turned that down.
I would too.
Yeah,
I get that.
And as for I'm more skeptical. I mean, in terms of the Devils and the Islanders and the Metro, the team I'm more skeptical of is not as more of the Islanders is the Pittsburgh Penguins. The way that they've played, Mata's hurt again. They're overplaying Letang. Sidney Crosby is not playing like Sidney Crosby has in the past. I mean, they've been getting by with really good goaltending from Fleury, and Malkin has come alive recently, but they're not playing up to the capabilities that a lot of people thought they were. And I don't know if that's going to end up costing Mike Johnston his job, but I just. I'm a little puzzled.
To be concerned about Pittsburgh. I mean, I really do. I agree with you, Mike. I mean, I think that. I mean, it brings up the question that we now want to ask Kevin too from last week. We talked about was is Sidney Crosby an all-star?
Well, not by performance level, but I feel about all-star the same way I do about retired numbers. Like it really becomes wearisome to me when people judge the retiring of numbers like it's like entering the Hall of Fame. Like he didn't do enough.
Right.
To me, the hanging of a jersey is about how the popularity of the player within the community.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It doesn't matter what he did on the ice. And to me, all-star participation is about the popularity of the player within the hockey community. It's similar. So I would argue that even if Sidney Crosby is not playing at a high level, it's better for the league if Sidney Crosby is there.
I agree.
I get that.
That's the way I would view it. But I guarantee you, if they put him on that team, Twitter will be a blaze over saying, "Oh, he didn't deserve it." But anyway,
that's just part of the wonderful part of the All-Star game. I mean, that's part of the. Let's admit. I mean, as much as I agree with what you're saying there, part of the great thing of the All-Star game is the debate of the All-Star game. I mean, that's part of what makes the All-Star game worth playing is the fact that we can debate about them. Like that to me. Picking these players is the interesting part of it. I mean, it's much more interesting to pick who's going to be on the game than the game is itself. So, you're absolutely right, because people will say, "Oh, I don't care about it. I don't care about it. I don't care about it." When their guy doesn't get on, then they're
absolutely. Yeah, you're exactly right, Kevin.
No question about it. I mean, they're absolutely going to freak out. Let's go to the West real fast before we get out of here. So right now, Dallas, St. Louis, Minnesota, LA, San Jose, Vancouver, Nashville, and Chicago are all in the playoffs. Dan, why don't we start with you on this one? Who's favoring?
This looks about right to me, honestly. I guess if one team I would think falls out, maybe I don't trust Vancouver. Their core is really young there, and maybe they're overachieving a little bit right now. I really don't know what to make of them. They're win a couple, lose a couple, win a couple, lose a couple. And like I said, they rely a lot on some very young kids, so I don't know if they can keep that the whole season. But the rest of the conference, I think, is about right.
Yeah.
You have to think Anaheim gets its act together, right?
I couldn't agree more with Dan. I think last night Ryan Getzlaf, and as soon as I say this, half the players in the league will all gag because half the players don't believe in statement games. But I thought last night was a statement game for Ryan Getzlaf.
Absolutely.
5 assists. Hey, look, you guys want to write me off, say I'm too slow. the game's passing me by. It's all about you speed and young players. I don't think so. And big game for them to win the way they won, and I just too much there not to get in the playoffs, and for them to get in, because there's going to be 5 from the other division.
Right.
Somebody's got to go. So I love the phrasing what Dan said. He doesn't trust the Canucks. That's where I am. I don't trust them. I don't know.
I don't dislike them. I just don't trust them.
I can't read them.
Right. Right.
I said yesterday, Dan, that it was less the young core, the young players like Virtanen and Horvat, and more maybe the decline of the Sedins and Burrows and Miller.
They are still good.
No, I know they're still good, but I'm talking about as the season progresses and as they get worn down. I think
they do play Ryan Miller way too much too.
Right. And I think if they play Markstrom 25 to 30 games and Miller stays healthy, they have a chance. Yes. But I think that their main players, their core players, are the Sedins and Burrows, and most of their core is 35 or close to 35, and that in the NHL, to me, that's death. So I think Anaheim is going to be one of the top 3. And sorry, I think San Jose has a chance of falling out of that top 3. I think that a team like I am not ready, even though they gave up 5 assists to Getzlaf yesterday. I'm not ready to write off the Calgary Flames.
I am.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, like here's how I feel about the Flames right now. My buddy asked me last night. He's like, "Do you think I should start Carey Ramo in DraftKings?" And I said I would start an empty net before I started Carey Ramo.
You are starting an empty net.
Wow.
And it's just a classic example. Is that team? That team has no one that can stop the puck.
Yeah, and they just waived Ordio
the other night. Holy cow!
And they just waived Ordio this morning. So obviously their goaltending problems can't be solved internally. Maybe they make a trade. Maybe they're the team that goes out and trades for a goalie.
I'm a little bit sour on Calgary because I really defended them against all the advanced stats geeks.
Yeah, me too. I picked them to win the damn division.
I didn't pick them to win the division, but I felt that what would save them from the dire predictions that all the advanced stats, that they were just like Colorado because they had too much luck last season. Statistically, they were a lucky team last year. But I thought their defense is so good with the addition of Doug Hamilton that I thought they would be at least where they were. Plus, Gaudreau was going to be better. Monahan was going to be better. But I guess what I really didn't count on is their goaltending has really let them down. I mean, there have been a lot of factors. And the other thing, too, that's really bothersome is, and I just hate this about the NHL, Bob Hartley was doing a great job last year when they were all overachieving and everything else. Now all of a sudden you're hearing rumblings about, well, he's, the room, they're tired of his antics and all that. Well, it's just reflective of they're below 500. When you're above 500, your coach is brilliant. When you're below 500, we hate him.
It's winning.
Hey, you're right.
Everything, winning solves everything in the NHL. It's incredible. I mean, this is such a fickle league, right from the. I mean, every team. I've said it before, but if you've ever just hung around a team at all, even just the people who sell the tickets, or the people who are doing all the other stuff in the offices, the people who are organizing the fundraisers and all this stuff, everybody is somber when the team's losing. It's incredible. It just goes right through. And when the team's winning streak, everybody's happy. When I did the Flyer Buzz TV show for Comcast, I knew that never to ask for anything that the Flyers had just lost. Just don't even talk about it. The Flyers have won a couple games, go in there and say, you know what I'd like to do, and they'll be like, yeah, let's do it. Woohoo, that sounds great. I mean, it is so like this, up and down, and it runs right through the organization. And you're right. I mean, it's not partly suddenly he's a bad coach. I mean, it's ridiculous. It is really ridiculous. So finally, last thing, we got the Thanksgiving Day game tomorrow. Boston and the Rangers this year, which is good. I mean, I had a theory on this. I mean, I like the fact the NHL has a Thanksgiving Day game. I think it's good. I mean, it's not, they're not at the point, where the Detroit Lions are, on Thanksgiving Day of owning a day. Which the Lions have been. The Lions are taking on the Eagles, which will be a fun game for all to watch because the Eagles are just.
Please, I'm an Eagles fan. Don't get me started.
Oh, I know, but and Kevin's Lions fan, so it's gonna be a fun day tomorrow. But I'm a believer that if you're gonna try to make this game something special, every year the Thanksgiving Day game needs to be a rematch of the Stanley Cup final the year before.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Just make that an automatic. That on Thanksgiving they're playing the final. We're replaying the final from the year before.
I like that.
Well, that's what the NBA has done on Christmas. I think most of the time it's a very prominent matchup, and I mean it involves at least one of the finalists from the previous year, if not the rematch. So that would probably be a good thing to find.
Yeah, and they need to steal from the NFL and get award somebody the wishbone if they play the game or something, or a piece of pumpkin pie. They should go out, and if you win, you should get a pumpkin pie in the face, or
right. And have its own little cup. Like you played for the Stanley Cup last year. This year, you get to play for the Turkey Cup.
Yeah.
And I think it would give something because you would know it. Because I mean, the Bruins Rangers, that's always a great matchup, of course. Original 6 teams battling, but I would like to. I wanted to be something specific. Like, I remember, and it's so funny you say about the first Winter Classic game, Kevin, because I did want to stay on that for a second. It was incredible how crazy the people at the NHL were about that game right before that second. Like there was a real sense of are we even going to play the game? Remember that? It was a really weird feeling.
Right.
I was covering the tailgate outside. I was walking around with Julie Robenheimer. We were talking to people, and I was getting texts like, they might not play this game. I was all kinds of. I'm like, what? There's like 70,000 people partying out here. How can they not be playing this game? They had no idea how it would work if it snowed. They had no idea what would happen next. And you're right. It was such a leap of faith at the time. It was something. And now they're if they hear it's going to snow, they're like, oh hooray, it's going to snow,
And I sold my tickets for that game for cost.
Well, what's interesting about that is the Collins the Star was born the minute it started snowing.
Absolutely. It was like some kind of snow globe recapturing everyone's youth and childhood.
That was great. It's funny when I remember, and I wouldn't tell this story if not for the fact that I know our listeners and viewers know Julie Robenheimer. Is what I also remember from that is Julie showed up at that game wearing high heels, and we had to walk down from Ralph Wilson. The steps down there were nothing but a sheet of ice, and I thought, man, you are the bravest person I have ever seen in my life. They're trying to negotiate those icy stairs in high heel shoes.
In the parking lot, walked around the parking lot. It was in the snow. Yeah, it was crazy. I agree. It was absolutely nuts. But still, in my opinion, the two most exciting things I've ever covered were that game and the USA-Canada game in Vancouver. But those are the two events that I just put above all others as far as hockey goes for me, as far as my shorter career goes, because that Winter Classic game was the first time, and probably I think the only time to this point that I actually heard people in the press box starting to cheer as the game was going. Like there was actually when we got to the because there's no cheering in the press box. It's everybody's very serious, and I mean there's some fun razzling that goes back and forth between American and U.S. writers in different situations or whatever. But this was a case where once it got to the shootout, there actually was. I mean, Pierre LeBrun, everybody was standing in the press box, which was really interesting. I don't remember that. It was like the first time I've ever seen where people were standing up in the press box, which is really rare. And people were actually, not you, Kevin, and not me, because I was terrified of doing it. But there were Canadian people like Pierre LeBrun and Craig and these guys behind us that were cheering the shootout. And I thought that was the coolest thing because we all became fans. It's snowing, Crosby's coming in on Miller. I thought that was the coolest thing that everyone was just put down this whole farce that we're not hockey fans. It just allowed it to be hockey, allowed ourselves to be hockey fans for a little bit and cheer on this whole thing. And I thought that was great. And now you're right. That was the day that Kevin Collins became, an absolute superstar.
John Collins.
John Collins. Sorry, not Kevin.
Kevin Collins has always been a superstar, right?
Yes, Kevin Collins is
except for people who like fights.
Right. That's all the time we have for today, guys. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. We here at Hockey Buzz are so.
I grabbed cards.
Oh, you got some cards. I know. I'm out here. I don't have my cards.
I know. Real quick, just do a couple, real quick. All right.
Oh, you got some. Good.
All right. This is a former Maple Leaf prospect. Found a home with the Rangers and is now currently on another Eastern Conference team.
Wow. Mike. Come on, Mike.
I was going to say, it's not Emanen, is it? But
no. Still an active player, a very good player.
Yeah, no.
What was the clues? What were the clues?
Drafted by the Maple Leafs, played with the Rangers, and is now on another Eastern Conference team, helped defeat the Rangers in the playoffs last year.
Oh, I was going to say John Mitchell because he ended up on
He's
the.
the Tampa Bay Lightning player.
That's right.
The
Ryan
defenseman.
Callahan.
The defenseman.
You're right. His name.
Anton Strawman.
There you go, Anton Strawman. All right, there we go. All right. Here's one for you. University of Michigan grad. University of Michigan grad. Goalie for the Star. Marty Turco. Yep, that was kind of a gimme. Here's a tie. Quinnipiac University. Quinnipiac University graduate. First player ever to appear in an NHL game for Quinnipiac.
Not Jeff Zatkoff, is it?
No, not Jeff Zatkoff. Nope. He had a very brief cup of coffee a few years ago with.
Ken Reagan.
Led the Quinnipiac University Bobcats to the national championship game.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
I'm striking
Eric
out.
Hartzell.
Okay.
Oh,
That was completely from. All right, last one.
Hartzell doesn't know who that is.
Last one. All right, last one. All right.
I liked him.
First round draft pick of the Los Angeles Kings.
Jonathan Bernier.
Yeah, that was for Mike. All right, good.
Bernier, you can't miss that. Oh, awesome. Good job, Dan. Way to pick it up.
Thank you. I do what I can.
Thanks to everybody. Again, we really appreciate you guys watching the show and reading our stuff, and definitely coming to Hockey Buzz and supporting us. Have a great Thanksgiving tomorrow. Don't eat too much turkey, and if you're in Canada, just enjoy another day at work.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Talk to you soon. Without the buzz, it's just hockey. See you then.